My guest today is a development planner and economist. He now leads Ghana's body mandated to plan the country's development. He is touted as one of Ghana's best brains when it comes to development planning. Dr. Kodjo Mensah-Abrampa, Director General of National Development Planning Commission, is my guest today on Hot Issues. Doc, you're welcome to Hot Issues.
Thank you.
Why do you think Ghana is so poor?
So poor?
Ghana is poor, isn't it?
No. We're a lower middle income country.
Does that make us rich? It is poor, isn't it?
We're not poor. Because if you have the means of measuring in terms of development and all the indicators, global indicators, we have what we call the least developed countries. Then you have developing countries. Then you have lower middle income, upper middle income, and then developed. So it tells you that if you go by these 5 graduations, we're right in the middle.
But this does not translate to individual lives in the country.
It does, because our per capita income, how much we earn, and the sophistication in our lives, and our well-being is far higher than the average in the world.
But how do you explain that to the 24.2% of the population who live on $1 a day?
Definitely, 24.4 is a figure, which means that we also have 75% of them who are far above
Right,
it.
so what I'm asking is, how do you explain the fact that the country has money, but it doesn't trickle down to those people? How do you explain that to them?
It does, but definitely we cannot live on the same income bracket, in the same income bracket, which means that definitely there are some people who are poor. But there is a process which has gone on for a very long time. Within the period of 20 years, we've been able to halve that. It means we've been able to move half of the people who are poor right into a higher range of well-being and satisfaction. So it's a process.
Someone would argue that maybe the numbers are so on paper, but in practice, people's lives are not getting any better.
It's a reality, because we are talking about a census.
I see.
Yes.
I see.
And that is the science of it.
So then, I want you to identify what the problems could be. The reason why there's still quite a chunk of Ghanaians who are not feeling the progress of a lower middle income country.
Yes, we've done a lot of studies around this, and it tells you that there is a facet and a combination of certain factors which brings people into poverty. We have what we call the 13 vulnerable range of areas where you can fall within. And when you fall within, your prospects and opportunity for coming out of poverty is very limited. Particularly, some of them are locational. If you tend generally to be in the northern part of the country, where farming season is one, you don't have a double peak. You have only one season, which means that if you miss that season, definitely for the rest of the year, you might encounter difficulties in food security, difficulties in even providing for yourself and paying for the support for your children. That is one. The other one also has to do generally with farming. If you're subsistence, which means that it's a huge risk. Subsistence farming means that you're relying on your farm for feeding yourself and then supplying income for your family. If you miss that, it means that for the rest of the year, you might have difficulty getting sources of funding and income. That is another. So 13, another one has to do with generally, if you happen to be disabled, you fall within the disability bracket and you don't have a reliable support, it plunges you into poverty, so you become vulnerable relatively. And therefore, and generally, it's also gender dimension, which means that if you happen to be a woman, and you happen to be on subsistence farming, and you happen to be somebody with disability, it means that you have all these 3 things falling on you, and you might find it difficult to come up, because we tend to have in quite a bit of a polarized society where decision making is also genderized, and these are some of the things. But what I would say is that these areas have been identified, and there are specific responses which have been developed.
We'll get into those specific responses. But so Ghana isn't poor, you say?
No.
Then I'd ask, are you happy with the level of development so far? What would be your assessment?
Well, let me say that given the trend, we have been doing quite well in terms of the trend. In terms of expectation, where we wanted to be, we are not there yet at all. Because if you look at our plans, we're definitely not hitting the target which we set for ourselves, which means that we need to accelerate to be able to catch up. And that is obvious.
But Doc, what is quite well if the people are not feeling it? If the people are not realizing the returns of quite well?
I think that, you see, people, who are the people? We've done the census, we've done counting, we interact with people, and the situation is improving. It's not deteriorating. We went through a period of challenge which really affected our plans. We need to review our notes and everything to be able to respond to that. But generally, we've gone through a period of improvement. If you have a situation where the social sectors are responding positively in terms of people's access to education, people's access to health, people's access to water, people's access to even the economic side, energy, it is. But there is a typical challenge which we've identified. Particularly, we need to grow what we call the areas related to manufacturing in order to change the structure of our economy. Because basically, lives have improved.
Have they? I mean, how do you tell that to the young people who are leaving the country in droves? We can't even measure because we don't have data on our young people who are leaving. How do you tell those people who are escaping the country that there is improvement?
You see, escaping the country, there's a pull factor, there's a push factor. This one is a pull factor.
It's a push factor.
It's a pull.
Is it?
Yes.
Is it?
Because
around
just 5 years ago, just
around
ago,
the world,
yeah.
around the world,
yeah.
they have also faced the same external factors.
Yes.
However, our people are willing to go there instead of stay here and hope that things will get better. It's a sign of a failed development.
Not at all. Not
cycle.
at all. Not at all. Because there is a pull factor. There's a pull factor. The pull factor was that 5 years ago, if you go to Britain, America, Canada, and you're looking for a job, you struggle. Today, they have a problem. They have a gap. And therefore, they are putting resources there to pull. That is one thing. You note that as a problem. And how do we respond to that as a country? Because definitely, the opportunities there might be in terms of wages, might be in terms of what you earn as an income.
Is it really? Because, Doc, some of our people who are leaving the shores of our country into these places are doing menial jobs for very unsatisfactory wages. But they want to do it anyway because they would rather be there than be here. And you're telling me it's not a sign of failed development?
It's a matter of income. It's a matter of only one factor that you are using to measure. Income. You are earning more income. But there are so many things that pertains to development. There are the things that you are also losing over here, you might not factor it in.
Let's talk about those things. What are they losing over here?
They are losing so many things.
Like
the
what?
Satisfaction of a family, the satisfaction of being with your colleagues, the satisfaction of contributing even to the development of your own country. All those things are factors. The satisfaction of seeing and growing not only you, but also along with the other parts of your family. People are missing things here, which if you give them that same amount of money, they would like to come.
But these things you have mentioned are on the individual level. Imagine things were better on the macro level here in the country. They would stay.
No, it's a comparative thing. No. Let's look at it. It's a comparative thing. Definitely those countries that they are choosing to go are doing better. There's no doubt. But we are not doing worse. It's a level of development which you have. You know, some 30 years ago, there were drones of Ghanaians who went to Nigeria.
People's incomes.
Drones of people who went to Nigeria.
People's incomes are no longer helping them live the lives they expect to live.
It's not just income.
Because things are expensive to buy. People are not getting access to quality healthcare. And you talked about access to healthcare, but quality is becoming a problem.
You know something? Health access is relative. We are one of the countries where even the poorest, just by registering through health insurance, will have access to basic health. Many countries sees Ghana as a model when it comes to access to health. When it comes to health delivery.
What is basic health?
And all our indicators are reducing. Maternal death has reduced drastically, halved within the period. Infant mortality has reduced drastically. Our access to nutrition, food security child issues that had to do with, stagnant growth, waste, and all of them indicators are there to show that they have all improved within the last 10 years, which is fantastic. Many African countries compare all around us, and these are figures which you use it in relative terms. Even in countries that are developed, they're still struggling with some of these parameters and figures.
So again, as a development practitioner, you tell me how you are processing what people say about the country, the fact that things are difficult, the fact that they want to escape what people are experiencing in the country.
Let me say that saying things might not be factual.
But those are their experiences.
But what is the case? Saying and the relative. I can sit here and say I'm hungry.
Doc, haven't your bills gone up? Haven't your bills gone up over the last week? It has. So what I'm saying is that their experiences are what they are telling us, that life is difficult because we haven't progressed as a country. They are telling you that when they go to the hospitals, they are not getting beds to sleep on. They're telling you that their children have access to education. However, the quality of education, they are questioning.
No. We have the best result in our education trend since independence for secondary education. The best ever.
I see.
And that is it. So we use facts and not just, emotions
and not people's lived experiences.
No, facts.
What is facts to people's lived experiences?
How many students are now moving from junior secondary school to secondary school? And how many of them are scoring better? We are scoring better grades in English, better grades in mathematics, better grades in integrated science, better grades in social integration. What again?
Doc, are we picking the facts, the facts as you call them, over people's lived experiences?
No. Lived experience is expressed in facts. Lived experience.
So then,
it's not mine alone, which is a case. It is a collective situation.
I couldn't agree
and the collective situation is put in terms of what? Aggregation. And the aggregation is represented by an objective analysis and by a figure. And that's what we use to capture that. Other than that, we can't go to every individual. We pick the individual, aggregate it, and that is the score that we look at. And it shows. The figure shows that our children are improving in terms of the scores that they obtain in an examination, and nobody doubts that. It's factual. They are improving. They've moved from a 31% in terms of mathematics to about 60% in terms of pass rate. Is it not factual? Is it not the fact?
But then again, if the idea of quality education is only on scores, haven't we missed the
at
whole
that
point
level?
Of education?
It's an integrated education, integrated, collective education. I'm just using this as one. You go to early childhood. It's not just we are introducing them to critical thinking. There's so much emphasis now on early childhood education, which I did not have. And that is a way to start training them from time zero, and that's what they say, the critical time to time that you'll be 5 years. And this is a focus. It is bringing up children who are better, smarter in all aspects than some of us went through. And that is the kind of society you build. And that is the kind of society that is being built. A situation where people get to primary school and that is the end. They cannot even write their name. They cannot read. They are actually part outside and the periphery of development.
But these things you talk about, we have seen them in this country. That while we have expanded access to education, we go to the primary level and children cannot read sentences, they cannot spell their names. We've seen that. That is quality of education.
The situation is, yes, and the figures show.
I see.
The report
what are we doing to
show.
change that? What has been done to change that?
So many things.
I see.
Many, many things.
Like what?
And I always say that it's the essence of the aggregation. More resources are now being put into the education to provide teaching materials, to support teachers, to support the students, to provide these facilities, and improve over time. And that is it. The number of children who hitherto were considered as schools under trees are now being gradually being taken away. And if you look at the numbers and the graduation, you realize that gradually this is being taken away. Introducing children not only to the grammarian type of education, but really technical-based education, science, and technology. And there are specific resources which have been devoted countrywide, our own sacrifice from our taxes, which are putting up these structures and improving and actually introducing children to laboratory work, not only in the universities, but right at the secondary school.
At which labs? Doc, again, I'm coming to you.
Have you seen the STEM institutions that are being built?
Oh, where? Because I know there was one at St. Peter's. But apart from St. Peter's, which other ones have been commissioned?
I don't have the list here, but I can tell you that at least they are building one in Engineering. There is one also here in Accra, right? And I can take you there right from here. You go and see your young girls in the laboratory performing titration and all those things. And this is the kind of thing we did not have the opportunity to do.
So the exit point for that will be that our children are well trained,
yes,
and then they find meaningful jobs to do or begin meaningful businesses themselves. How is the country doing with that?
You see, planning is a sequence. What has been our struggle in this country, right from independence? We have all the resources, all the natural resources. Talk about it. We're one of the countries that have the best, we call it a juxtaposition of minerals for industrialization. And yet, we export about 80% of them in a raw form. When it gets out, they process it, and they bring it down to us. So you realize that the two prone areas which is pushing our development is primary source and the tertiary source. And that is agriculture and mineral development, and then also services. The middle part, which is the industrialization, even in this year, with all the effort, agriculture grew at 6.2%, services at 6.3%, and industry -2%. Manufacturing actually -2%. Why that? Why? Because the structure of our economy is wrong. We have always been pushing for primary processing, and then you go and do the trading. But the middle part, why were we not able to do that? The skills, right from independence, this has been the issue. The skills to be able to turn this around, to be able to, get our manufacturing sector down.
Are there particular skill sets?
Yes, definitely.
Are there particular skill sets that were needed for that?
Definitely. You need to have engineers. You need to have people who can do the science and analyze and get the manufacturing sector going. You need food experts who can process the kind of food that we produce.
We have been training food scientists, engineers.
How many of them? How many of them?
From across all the public institutions.
18%.
No, hang on.
18%, given the number of people that would go into the sciences.
No, hang on. See where I'm taking the question. We have trained food scientists across all our public universities. We have trained engineers across all our public universities. And it's not just over the last 8 years. It's been over the existence of the universities.
I'm telling you how
My
many
question
of them.
is, why haven't we been? Or is it that we are not teaching them the right thing?
They are not. You see, you need a certain number, what we call critical mass, to be able to change. We don't have it. If you have an education system which is churning out 18 into sciences and the rest into the arts and others, we get it wrong.
But cumulatively, we have trained quite a number.
You see, once you train people,
hold on. Is it that the opportunity to apply what they have learned is not there?
It is.
Or we are training them in the wrong skill sets?
You see, it's. Let me put it this way. You need a critical mass to be able to work and come out with a real attainment of where we want to reach. And this is the kind of trend we are developing. It is not just having scientists. You need middle-level people, technicians. You need people who also provide the service at the basic level. Look, even critical welders to do undersea welding in our oil exploration. These are things which we might need in order to look at the East industry. So what we have done, working along with Ministry of Employment, the private sector, and then also the TV Secretariat, we'll be able to identify the resources that we have. And then what are the skills that we need? Where are the gaps? Where are the critical areas? And that's what we call the Human Capital Development Strategy, which National Development Planning Commission is developing with them. That will indicate to the Minister for Education, what do we need from you? How many scientists? How many people do you have to push into the business sector? How many people do you have to push into the art sector? This is the kind of thing we do. We go to the university,
is that document in effect already?
It is.
Okay, I see. For how long has it been in
effect?
No,
we just completed it this year.
Right. Yeah. So how are we going to see it being applied?
Definitely, it becomes the basis of policy. And as I indicated to you, dialogue with the Minister for Education indicates, we say that these are the areas that we do. And then the honorable minister will just carry it. And that's why he says that we need to have at least 40% of our people going to the sciences by 2030.
How do we ensure that this document transcends governments?
It transcends government.
Yes.
It is not. It wasn't developed by GET. It was developed by National Development Planning Commission.
But it's not. Is it binding on the Education Ministry? What the document you have given them is it binding on them? The National Development
Planning, the Education Minister is a member of the commission, and he contributes to it, and that is his document too.
So what I'm driving at is how do we ensure that when Dr. Educhum is no longer Education Minister, when the NPP is no longer in government, another government comes in, another Education Minister, we ensure that this very important document is adhered to and is worked with.
The documents and the plans that are produced by National Development Planning Commission, it doesn't go with the segment of the 4 years, the political 4 years. Every document that is produced by National Development Planning Commission is apolitical, and it transcends the period of every government until it is exhausted. Even if you throw it away, even if you decide that I'm going to throw it away, that becomes underpinning, because that is an economic analysis which tells you where we are and where we are going. You might not even come and say, oh, I love this document, but then the document is there for you to use. And that is what happens.
Again, I'll come back to the issue of natural resources and our state as a country. But let's move on and talk about Ghana Beyond 8, which we touted in 2019. And it was also, I believe, a charter and you developed a charter and strategy for it, if I'm correct.
Let me say categorically that this was a document which was made part of the National Development Planning process, but with an overarching goal to get us beyond 8. And this was well established in our long-term perspective. That is it.
And we feel that it's, wouldn't you say?
Well, I would say that it worked very, very well.
Okay.
And I can say that the document which came into being, I think, 2017, you see a real progression of gradually getting out of it. And though we went through some hiccups in 2020 thereon because of the COVID, it is now going back into the trend, because you see that our terms of trade had always been negative, but now it's registering positive, which means that we are getting more from our exports than imports, which is a clear indicator of the Ghana Beyond 8.
We're getting more from exports?
From our export than our import. Trade balance.
Are we?
Yes, trade balance, yes.
Which year is this?
It started 3 years ago. Okay. The balance has been that we're getting more from our export than our import, and including this year.
And what
this year was minus 2.3. Minus 2.3 means that 2.3% means that we exported more, 2.3% more than what we imported.
Our export-import balance was minus 2.
Trade balance, yes.
2.3. Exactly. And we are saying that it means that we exported more than we imported.
Exactly.
And this is for 2023.
2023, the budget which was read by the minister.
I see.
Yes.
That's news to me, but
no, it's there. I can show you.
Again, Parliament
the budget is there.
I get it. Again, Parliament has been very worried about our import balance. I remember that they tried to do something about the $14 billion.
And the 2.3 is just a hit. But we could do more.
We could
do more. And there are so many things which we import which are unnecessary because it can be produced locally.
So
that's it.
So again, I'll just come back to the point. The president... and I'm quoting him, "We can and should build a Ghana that is prosperous enough to stand on its own 2 feet, a Ghana that is beyond dependence on the charity of others to cater for the needs of its people." But we haven't seen that over the last few years.
It is not just 1 year. It's a progression. It's a sequence. It's an action. It's a goal.
It's not only in the last year.
It's not an action.
It's not only in the last year that
I just gave you
a case. I get the point about the export and import trade balance. But I'm saying that
definitely amount.
No, hang on. Like you said, it's just a hitch. Yeah. Which means that it's really not giving us capital to spend, and we've had to find other ways to raise that capital. One of the ways that we did was to run back to our donor partners and tell them, give us some more money. And we have done that. It's not just the last few years.
It's not just that. And as I said, there was a process which was started in 2017. And if you look at the figures from 2017 to 2020, you realize that almost all the donor support for our sectors was going down, and there was definitely an alternative which was provided locally. In 2020...
Was the alternative provided locally?
Yes,
or the alternative was that we floated a lot of bonds during that period?
No. It was also provided locally because you realize that our GDP really rose very, very high. And you could see the trend. Because if you register the growth rate of about 8.2%, it tells you that you've generated a lot of resources within. And that is it. And this was consistent. The average at the period was 7%. And it's an envy for a country to be growing at 7%. Very, very huge envy.
I see.
So it tells you that we're on the path. Yes, the unanticipated situation happened. And therefore, we need to juggle a lot of things to be able to, because just growing for 3 years doesn't give you, the necessary stability. You are still vulnerable.
Yes.
The resilience was low. And therefore, we really suffered. But you could see that because we built those 3 years, turning around is becoming a bit easier than expected. So the turning around process has, been initiated than we even expected, we even projected. Because a lot of the things that we projected happening this year, we're thinking about it in 2025 in terms of economic projections.
I see.
But they are happening this year. We're already seeing inflation going down and all those things.
Right. How do we describe the state of the Ghana Beyond Aid agenda right now?
It is not just one trend. Let me put it this way.
No. How do we describe the state of the Ghana Beyond Aid agenda as it is right now?
It is ongoing.
Ongoing?
Yes, that is it. We experienced a hit, but we are now turning around.
Okay.
Yes, but let me put it this way to make it quite explicit. You see, Ghana Beyond Aid is not just one activity or one action or even a period of 4 years. No, it is a strategic process to take us and wean us from depending on donors. The first part of it has to do with what we call preparation for takeoff. Preparation for takeoff means that you are getting the structure of your economy right, improving the industrial development and improving the industrial development manufacturing, because you can't live on just the primary and the tertiary. So that is one. The second part, which is the next, in fact, after the first 4 years, you move preparing for taking. The next 4 years, you have to look at what we call taking off. Taking off means that you are developing those other areas which have remained latent to begin to also produce. Expanding, moving agriculture into commercial agriculture, providing skills that are needed, what we call the precision quality of things, that the kind of learning that we need to bring into our education and be able to propel that. The third area is what we call acceleration. Once you take off, you need to accelerate. Acceleration means that bringing in all these resources that we have, combining them in the sense that we can propel our development. The fourth segment, usually happens after 20 years or so, what we call consolidation. You are now making sure that these things that you've established have been consolidated through strengthening your institutions and others. And the last one is sustaining that.
I see the plan, but tell me this. How do we say that the Ghana Beyond Aid agenda is ongoing when we are currently with the IMF and asking for funds?
You see, being with IMF and working for funds, what you need to show, and that is very critical, is that you are putting things in order to be able to make use of whatever you are taking from them to move on. As I said, we've experienced a very serious economic, jeopardy within this period. What happened is something nobody anticipated.
Right, so what I'm saying is
and
that
then we
at
are
this
moving
point,
on. So moving on.
It will be an untrue conclusion to say that Ghana Beyond Aid is ongoing.
It's ongoing. We're turning around the corner.
No, you may be turning around the corner on other issues, but you are not doing it without aid. That's the point I'm saying.
Let me put it that way. Ghana without aid doesn't mean you don't go, you're saying that we don't want aid at this year. No. Ghana Beyond Aid means that gradually you are weaning yourself.
And so the point I get that. The point I'm making to you is we haven't got to the point where we are even saying that we've made progress to weaning ourselves.
I've used the expression, it's a process, not an action. It's a process. It's a sequence. One action follows the other to develop that process. Ghana Beyond Aid has a dimension. It's talking about institutional development. It's talking about economic turnaround, creating wealth. It's talking about improving our educational system in such a way that we will relate our resources to education. It's talking about identifying sectors which are remain latent, like tourism and others, to bring it. So the whole combination of that, it's not just one action, Ghana Beyond Aid, and you press it. It's a multiple of actions that ought to be undertaken.
And that is what I'm saying. That we just expected to have seen much more progress than we are seeing right now. Those multiple of actions are ongoing, and definitely it is a review which will take us to the course, and we'll definitely get there. I do want us to look back, I mean, beyond, the current administration, and try and figure out what the problem is, why our negotiations are always lopsided against us.
What way?
Negotiations for our natural resources
are
always
aware of that.
lopsided.
I am not aware of that they are lopsided. I am not aware of that.
Tell me how much we are getting from our oil fields. What is the percentage?
I'm giving you the reason. And we need to fix it, and the government, upon government, has been working on that. It's not just
we didn't
to fix that.
I understand. The value chain wasn't there. But should that be the only reason why?
It makes you weaker to bargain. It makes you weaker.
So explain to us.
I have cassava, and I experience it every day. If you go to my village, they grow cassava. They uproot the cassava, send it to the market in Cape Coast. The market women will wait till 5 p.m. Then they come and ask you, how much is your cassava? Would you like to take it back to your village? No. So your bargaining power is weakened. Imagine if that cassava, you have a gari processing factory in that village. Would you bring it? So it's basic logic. We strengthen our bargaining position when you have a very strong alternative use for the facility. And until and unless we're able to strengthen that through adding value and refinery, the person who is going to bargain with you has an edge. Could it
also be an issue of leaders just signing bad deals?
I don't think leaders will do that. Whoever that leader is, I don't think they go just to have bad deals done. No.
Really?
And some of these negotiations, they bring in advisors, seasoned advisors, to support them to do that. And I know some of them are even provided for us free by the UN agencies. To support us.
I mean, from a development point of view, simplify this for us. How is it that we own the resource in our own country, and yet because we don't have processing for the natural resource, which is the beginning of the value chain, we have a weaker position because of that?
And I'll give you an analogy of that.
I mean, simplify.
It's basic. I've shown you, and the most simple example I can give you is cassava. In my village, that one I experienced it. We grew cassava in our village. We sent it to a market in Cape Coast, raw cassava. They wait till 5 p.m. The poor farmer, 5 p.m., they come and say that we are offering you this. What have you got to say? Sometimes taking it back to your village means that you are going to pay for transportation back to your village to do what?
So what stopped us? What stopped us from moving further all these years?
So that is what is happening. And it doesn't take 1 year to build a refinery.
Hold on. Let's just speak beyond the current administration.
I'm not talking about current administration.
I'm saying that as a country, why do you think it took a long time for our leaders to come to the point where we realize that this is what is giving us, the weaker bargaining chip at the table?
You know something? It is not just realizing now. And if you read the speeches of all our past presidents, it's there. It's there. But the point is, for each of them, a step is made. And then you add on. And then you add on. So for some of them, it is not just starting, they are continuing. For some of them, yes, it has to be initiated. So it's a process. But the sad thing is that, you are not bargaining with somebody who also like to give in easily to you. I am taking your bauxite raw. You want to build a refinery. Okay? Do I support the building of the refinery? No.
Well, if it's not going to help my people, I'll leave it in the ground.
Exactly. So these are some of the things you bargain. And then you look at it in terms of viability. Does it stay on the ground? And there are so many minerals which are in the ground, honestly. We are not exploiting because we think that it is not viable, just exporting the raw form. And therefore, you need to build a refinery process to be able to do that.
I see.
Okay? And that is it.
I want us to talk about the coordinated program of economic and social development policies. Article 36 of the Constitution requires every incoming administration to present a set of policies. And so here's what I want us to talk about. That the fact that each one of them will have to present their own economic and social development policy to the NDPC undermines continuity. Do you agree?
Let me say that it depends on how this is managed.
Okay.
For me, as a person, I think that this is more or less an overlap in our Constitution. And if eventually, if the Constitution is being reviewed, it's one of the areas that ought to be looked at. Okay, critically, yes. But let me come to NDPC. For NDPC, the process of containing the CP, that's how we call it, coordinated policy, has been very technical. Because once you have a long-term perspective, which shows the country's trend of development, once you have a government elected, it is elected in the process. But we do what we call negotiation. I call it the political technical interface. That's how I call it. But in theory, that's how it's also described. Any planner knows that. Planning is a technical activity, but situated in a political realm, which means that you need to negotiate. The negotiation means that you need to be at the table in developing this document. And this document, which is supposed to be presented by every president, has never been developed without NDPC.
I see.
So that is a fact. And every government depends on the technical knowledge and the process of NDPC to do that. So it is incumbent and it is expected from NDPC then to bring in the long-term process to rationalize. So this is a rationalization document.
I see.
What the president presented to the people, and the people gave the mandate.
In their manifesto?
Yes.
Okay.
The mandate, and also what is existing. So we have three factors we take into consideration. The existing economic situation and the plans that you have developed. The third area has to be the international obligations that you have signed. And then the third area has to do with the manifesto or the mandate, the basis of the people giving mandate to the president. So the combination of these three is a harmonization process, technical harmonization.
Again, how does that fly in the face of you know, our desire to have a national development plan where each and every government that comes will work within that framework?
You see, let me put it this way. The National Development Plan is a perspective. It's a long term.
Yes.
It's not specific. We want Project A to be in this town or that. Once you do that, you'll go into a political confrontation. But the technical long-term plan indicates the goal, what you want to attain. So, for instance, I gave the example of 18% in sciences, and then you have 72% in the arts and the business. The goal for the country is to shift this and have it 40 to 60 by 2030, and beyond that, 50-50, and then beyond, 60 to 40, in fact, balance it the other way around. So this becomes a goal. And if you have a government elected, no government will come and say, no, I'm going to reverse this. You get it? Yes. But if you say that, build a science block at, let me use my hometown to be safe, at Adjokwa, in your plan, what you are telling the government is that you have no way.
Okay. So again...
So let me conclude by saying that the long-term plan gives the broad aspirations of the people in this country, where we want to go, how we want to attain it. And the government, elected government, now negotiates in terms of specific strategy that could take us.
So is our long-term plan the 2057 plan?
It is our long-term perspective, which is now, we are now reviewing because of the circumstances we've just gone through. Yeah. Okay,
so that is our long-term plan.
Perspective. It's different.
Okay, why?
Because a plan is, as I said, is compulsory.
Right, so you prefer to call it a perspective.
Yes.
Okay, so our long-term perspective is the 2057 plan.
Yes.
What does it entail?
Oh, it entails a lot. 5 major areas have been categorized. The first one has to do with improving our prosperity. The second area is equity development and social services. The third area had to do with infrastructure development and settlement development. The fourth area has to do with governance, and the fifth area has to do with international relationship. And all these are strands which has also key indicators that are supposed to attain that. For example, the economic indicator says that by 2057, we should be a developed country.
I see.
Yes.
Okay. So is the 2057 plan, the Ghana at 100?
Yes, it's 100 years. Yes.
Yes. Is it different from the 40-year plan that the Mahama administration left?
No. You bring administrations, I'm not comfortable.
No, I'm just trying to understand. I know you transcend that.
National Development Planning Commission. I don't want names. No.
So what I'm asking, okay, no names.
Yes.
What I'm asking is the Ghana at 100 perspective different from the 40-year plan that we used to have?
You see, the Ghana at 100, we have this technical document, the long-term perspective, which is about 444 pages, 500 pages to be frank, because if you add the others. And how many people could relate to that technically? And it's a technical document. So the Ghana at 100 is just a 30-page summary, which makes it easier for people to interact with. And as I talked about these 5 goals, how are we going to attain it? What are the targets? Basically, that is what it expresses. Okay. The only thing is that it went short of these specific, areas, which are in the document. And the document has projections, economic analysis, econometric indicators and all those things, which a non-technical person might not be able to relate to. So that is it. It's an expression of a summary which makes it easier for us to talk about.
Again, perhaps I'm seeking clarity here.
Yeah.
So what happened to the 40-year development plan?
Oh, it's a technical document. That's what we use for our work.
It's still there?
Yes.
I see. All right. So let's talk about those that you broke down, because I know that at some point you broke it down to an 8-year plan. Then we had the 4-year plans. We've done poverty reduction 1, poverty reduction 2, which ended in 2009. And then we also have the shared growth strategy as well. We are on the second phase of that.
No.
We are still on the first phase?
No.
Okay, where are we?
So let me say that the coordinated program, which you mentioned, is what you're talking about.
Okay.
So we have transformative growth, better agenda, poverty reduction strategy 1, 2, 3, and all that. In 2017, the current president launched what we call Agenda for Jobs.
Okay.
So we have Agenda for Jobs 1 and Agenda for Jobs 2 for the current president. The previous president had the transformative agenda, shared growth, and then you have the Better Ghana agenda, also shared growth 2. So you get it. And then it goes all the way, but President Kufuor had the Ghana Poverty Reduction Strategy 1.
Yes.
Ghana
I think it's the same thing I'm saying.
So that is an 8-year document, which therefore breaks a long-term agenda into an 8-year perspective. The 8-year document is a consolidated program. In fact, in the Constitution, it doesn't say 8 years because it has to commensurate with the time of the president, which is 4 years. By being planners, once a president is elected, it doesn't start from the first year and hit the ground going. So we said we have to look at an 8-year perspective, which means that if a government is re-elected, it doesn't have any problem. If a new government comes, there is always an agenda that can be taken up because it takes about 1 year to prepare a plan. I hope we get it. Then this 8 year is also broken down to what we call 4-year medium-term policy framework.
Right.
The framework is very specific because then it gives sector-specific activity. So Ministry A, Ministry B, Ministry C, Education, Health, all of them bring their policies which are harmonized to this. And then we have a medium-term development plan. So
Doc, the reason I mentioned those was actually in relation to the coordinated program.
Yeah.
Right. So what I'm saying is that we know that a couple of those have expired and the second form of them have started, like you have shared. So I want you to assess how far we have come as a country. On poverty reduction, you have told us something already. Yeah. So on agenda of creating jobs, how are we faring as a country?
Let me say that we have already done the evaluation, which is on our website. If you go there, you'll find it.
I see.
Yes. But let me say that we looked at so many parameters, including jobs, education, because we look at creating jobs means that we have to look at certain areas in terms of education, in terms of the growth, the economic growth, because that is what absorbs the jobs. So we have a trend in terms of our reporting, where up to 2019, 20, there are very, very positive figures, which also commensurated with the average growth of 7%. From 2020, the growth started going down because it hit around 1.5, and even we're fortunate we got a positive figure of 1 at the end of the day. And then it started growing again. So there's a dip in terms of job opportunity, because but the point here is that what we saw in our pattern, if you have a dip of growth in 1 year, the lost job, sometimes it doesn't reflect in only 1 year. It goes on 1 year, 2 years, and if you don't amend it, then it goes on and on and on. Because the job market must receive, and then you will see all those things. We have another thing there done by Ghana Statistical Service, which is very specific on job losses. And I don't want to hazard with the figure because it's there.
I see.
And you see it on the GSS website. We've also linked it to our website.
But the NDPC thinks we're doing well.
In terms of jobs?
In terms of jobs. Let
me say that the drop in the growth in 2020 and 2021 is reflecting in terms of the rate of job creation.
I see.
In terms of that. So the first 3 years, there was a big jump. And then the dip came. But the dip is still reflecting.
Right. What are some of the programs that created some of these jobs, or are these private sector jobs?
Let me say that, you see, we already have, this year, if you look at the growth, it's -2 for manufacturing and industry. And this is the area which creates the biggest job. Now we have realized that the job creation opportunity is shifting to the service sector.
I see.
Yes, because the service sector is growing, and communication alone grew about 23%. So 23% job opportunities in the communication sector, as it to be against the other areas which went down. So, but these figures are all there, and you could see it in the job. So it's linked job security to different age groups, and very good analysis.
So I will come back to the issue of plans, but I want to look at the manifesto and the job of the NDPC, because it's easy to argue that, well, if at the end of the day you're going to take the manifesto and then work with the manifesto based on the conditions at the time, then what exactly is the NDPC doing?
You see, a lot of people talk about this, but they don't know the technical intricacies, which involves in planning. You see, and I've already mentioned that planning is a technical, political interface. The politician has a mandate elected by the people, but the ideas of the politician must be rationalized. That is the planning aspect. Okay, I want to do this. Then we tell you, no, you can't do this in 1 year. You have to do this in 5 years because of the constraint of resources. Or before you can do this, you need to do that because there must be a sequence. Okay, so this is the kind of advice we provide.
I see. But isn't it advice also that the finance ministry, the economic management team, Ministry of Planning, and the Ministry of State assigned to the finance ministry also, are these not things that they could already do? So it would seem that we have a duplication of...
No, not at all. Not at all.
I see.
You see, it's the kind of work that we do. Everybody has a role. Well expressed. If you go to the Public Financial Management Act, it's there, 921. You go to NDPC 479, 480. It's quite defined, and it is there. And you see the Public Management Act defines it in terms of the integration. Right. You can never prepare a budget without a plan. That is an act. It's required. Once you have your budget, it has to express the plan. If you go against the plan and you use the resource to do anything beside your budget, you've gone against the law. And that is why the Auditor General always comes out. So they're telling us, hey, you are not authorized to do this. I can't see the link between what you have accomplished and that. And therefore, you have, although you use the money, you misapplied. So all these are means. That is how a system works. So the budget, the plan speaks to the budget. The budget, in preparing the budget, we have what we call Economic Policy Development Committee, which thinks through, including the Governor of Bank of Ghana, Minister of Finance, and all the directors. They think through all this, but they think through this underpinning let me say that they think through all this in link with the plans which have been developed. If this is our plan and we want to do it, how do we get the money to do it?
Well, so Doc, you'd agree with me that in this Fourth Republic, we've had a lot of plans, or as you like to put it, perspectives also.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we seem to shelve it and then go.
We don't shelve anything.
I see.
That's
so we haven't failed at implementing our plans.
Let me ask you.
All of the Fourth Republic.
We assess the deviation and we improve upon it. That's what we do, and we always give them a feedback. That look, your budget that you have implemented, and compared to our plan, your deviation is at this rate. We would like you to improve, and we give it back to them. Every ministry. In the district, we do the same. I can present the district figure. The deviation of district assemblies from their budget is just 30%. 70% of what they say they want to do, their budgets respond to it. And it's a huge improvement. 4 years ago, when we measured, they were at 20%. 20%.
But when was
and then we got them improved. So now they are implementing their own plans.
So, Doc, give me an instance when you rejected a plan that was brought to you and had to work on it.
I work on a committee which I cannot devote. If you do, you can go to the the right information process, and you might get it. But the fact is that we reject some of them.
You do.
Yes.
You do.
We sit at the meeting, a program meeting, and vet every single ministry's budget. I sit in and we look at that. Is it corresponding to your plan? And if it's not corresponding, I tell you. And they run to NDPC.
I see. Well, so the NDPC is much powerful than we want to talk about.
Well, let me say that if you look at the acts and the law, if you're applying it as it is, it's a very powerful institution. The fact is that sometimes, and that is what I would like to state, you see, you also have another policy or legislation coming out. You see, and sometimes taking part of the powers of NDPC.
Like, give me an instance.
No, the establishment of Ministry of Planning. Okay? And it tells you straight away, if you have a Ministry of Planning and NDPC, then it means that is going to be conflicting.
Right.
But the president has a rationale for doing that.
I see.
And when it came for the review, and he said, now we don't need the Ministry of Planning, it was clear. All planners were comfortable, and we saw the authority of National Development Planning Commission.
I'd want us to wrap up and talk about the 24-hour economy and how the NDPC is processing it. I think that's where I want to go with it. But before then, again, I've seen that you have decentralized planning all the way to the local government. But we haven't decentralized money necessarily, the funds or the resources to support those plans necessarily.
For some of them.
Yes. How much of a challenge does that pose to?
It is much of a challenge, but let me look at the positive side of it. The districts have two major sources of funding. 3, their own generated sources, the government sources, and from donor and others. And if you look at it, we're still very dependent on government sources as against internally generated resources. So for us, what we want to do and what we advocate strongly is that much as the central government is actually sending resources to the district might also enhance their internally generated revenue. And we are supporting, we're working with the Office of the Local Government Service to strengthen them. In fact, we just ended a meeting 2 weeks ago in Kumasi, just on that. And it's working. We will monitoring it every year. We monitor.
So the plan is to monitor them.
Yes, we monitor.
But at the local government level, are they adhering to their plans? Because I've seen some very great plans on your website.
And I said 70%.
70%.
That is the rate, yes.
Even here in Accra.
They are doing very well, far better than many ministries. They're doing very, very well.
Wow.
Because they get quite a little amount of money, but they put it in their plan. 70%.
I see.
That is it started around 20%. We monitor it every year. Now they are 70%.
Let's quickly talk about the 24-hour economy, which is you know, big story across the country. How is the NDPC processing the 24-hour economy proposal?
Well, we haven't received any proposal.
Well, it's not an official proposal. Doc, you know where I'm going with that.
Let me say that I don't know the details of it. I only heard.
But you know the concept of a 24-hour economy.
Yes, 24-hour economy is something that we know. But, you know, the way it's being described by different people, I hear different inputs from different people.
Well, we want
so I don't really want to comment on it
the bottom
for now.
line is,
but let me
the
say
country
that.
wants to create a nighttime economy.
Let me say that in our long-term perspective, one of the things we have emphasized to support the 24-hour economy is to really digitalize.
I see.
Because I can buy a book from my home without necessarily getting up. So it's there in our medium perspective. It is really there. But it is hinged upon the digitalization of the economy. And it's happening. I was at home, I was surprised last week, and I heard somebody ringing my bell. And then I stay with my daughters. So I asked them, what's happening? So we asked for pizza. 12 midnight? So yes, and the guy was there to deliver. How did he do it? He was just smiling.
Yeah, but
so a job for the person, satisfying the person in the house. So, and that is through the email.
Sorry, the mobile phone. Right, but that again, that is quite simple of what the nighttime economy is.
No,
but what the proposal is that we have heard is to expand it bigger. That not only would we have online businesses running, but we'll also have physical businesses running in the nighttime.
A lot of the economy that really operates, you know, timeless situations depend on services. It's a service oriented, and service orientation in our current situation is based upon the digitalized process. And one government to another, we've worked on it seriously. We are one of the tops in Africa when it comes to a digitalized economy. We are one of the tops.
So you agree with the Vice President that it is not novelty?
Well, I will not sit here and say whether I agree or not, but I think what he has said is something which has been in the document and is being implemented. And the emphasis on the digitalization process is very, very important to identify a Ghanaian. Why did they come to my house? Because they use the postcode to identify us. Hitherto, we're using trees and women to describe ourselves. So what I say is that this is a process. It's not an action. And the process is already identified, and the economy is being worked on. Whether it's 24 hours or 12 hours, the basic thing is the engine that pushes it. And once you get the structure going, the rest is with the private sector. The private sector, the demand and the supply will indicate whether they should work in the night or work in the morning. And that is it. You go to some areas, they work in the morning. You go to some areas, they work in the night. When I was going to school in Europe, I worked in the night.
Doc, thank you for coming.
Yes.
Thanks for talking to us. Dr. Kodjo Mensah-Abrampa is Director General of the NDPC, the National Development Planning Commission, and he's been telling us fantastic things about our country. Let us know what you think on our socials. I am Kemini Amano. This is Hot Issues. We'll see you same time next week. Bye-bye.